Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. Really appreciate it. A big thanks to Emily and Elderwerks and the team here for bringing me in today. It's a great partnership and relationship that we have with Elderwerks, and I can't speak highly enough about the services that they provide. If you are not already familiar with what Elderwerks is doing in the lives of older adults and seniors, and also in the community, please dig in. I would encourage you to all look into what Elderwerks is doing, the services they have to offer, because I think that they're great. So my name is Tony LaPalio. I am the owner of a company called Senior Tech Support. We're based in Wheaton, Illinois. There's a card on your table, talks a little bit about who we are. We are a private company that supports individuals and independent and assisted living communities in the Chicagoland area and suburbs with all things tech support. Whether it's a problem that you have on a device, whether it's training or education that you need on a piece of software, or even how to use the device, please give us a call if you ever need help. But today, we're going to be talking about internet safety and online scams, which is a very, very important topic to talk about. So let's dive right in. I said. Today, here's the agenda. We're going to be talking about the basics of internet safety, just so you understand sort of what that means. We're going to talk about being prepared, being aware, and being defensive as an important foundation for everything that we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk a little bit about privacy settings on your devices. We're going to spend some time on passwords because I think it's really important. So I'm going to park there for a little while and talk about that. And then we're going to transition into internet scams. What are they? We're going to talk about some of the different popular ones that are happening right now, how to avoid them, so things that you can do to protect yourself and not get involved in one, and then what to do if you do accidentally get involved in one. Okay, and then we're going to end with a Q&A, and if anybody brought any devices or phones or anything, we can use those as examples, as teaching opportunities for the whole group if you have questions about your devices or anything about the presentation today. One other thing that I will say, please engage with me. I would much rather that this presentation be a conversation instead of a lecture, okay? So raise your hand if you have a question. Don't be afraid to ask. There are no dumb questions, I promise. And then you don't have to wait till the end and maybe forget the question that you wanted to ask. So I encourage questions during the presentation, except from you because I'm worried about you. He was heckling me this morning before I even started, so it's easy. I'm teasing. All right. Okay, let's start off with the basics of internet safety. I've been told recently that I shouldn't use the term internet highway, but I am not taking it out of this presentation. When I was young and the internet started, it was called the internet highway. I don't think anybody uses that term anymore, but I like it, and I'll tell you why. Because being prepared, being aware, and being defensive reminds me of what I was taught when I was driving. Who was taught to be a defensive driver? Everybody. They still teach it, and there's a reason. It's because when you're on the road, you need to be defensive. As far as I'm concerned, when I'm on the road, no offense to anybody in this room, I'm the only safe driver when I'm driving. When I'm on the internet, it's the same thing. I'm the only safe person on the internet. And you should try and keep that mindset as well. And you're going to start to understand sort of why. When you're driving a car, you're looking around, you're being aware, you're aware of your surroundings, you know what's going on. And because you're aware of your surroundings and because you're prepared and you know how to drive, you can be defensive. What we're going to talk about today is going to give you some new skills to be aware and be prepared so that you can be defensive. Now we're going to talk about spam. No, not this spam. We're going to talk about a different type of spam. Okay, and one of the things that I'm going to start off by saying here is the simple definition of spam is unsolicited communication in any form. That's what spam means. Now, you're here because you all want to be here, so what I'm telling you is not spam. But if I was trying to give you information, whether it was verbally or written or through an email or through a phone call or through a text message, and you didn't ask for it, that's spam. Now, the important thing to remember is not all spam are scams, but all scams are spam. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Who gets the phone calls from the robocallers asking you to donate to somebody's campaign, or somebody's running for some local government, right? We get all those calls. Hi, I'm John. Please vote for me. I'm supporting this platform. That's not a scam. That's spam. You didn't ask for that phone call, and maybe you want to give to that person's campaign, maybe you don't, right? We all know those robocallers, right? Telemarketers. Not necessarily scams, but that's spam. Am I making my point? Is the horse dead yet? Now, some of those could be scams, all right? And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But point here is not all spam are scams. We get it in the text messages, we get it in emails, we get it in our mailbox. How many postcards do you get in your mailbox for somebody wanting to seal coat your driveway or clean your gutters or wash your windows, right? That's just spam, okay? Unsolicited communication. We get it in all different ways. And now I want to talk about privacy settings, okay, on your devices. All of the digital devices that we all currently use have certain privacy settings that are already on them. They're built in by the manufacturer. The important thing that you want to remember about privacy settings is leave them alone. Don't turn them off. Don't change the privacy settings. Generally speaking, privacy settings are turned on by default and are good and there to protect you, okay? So on your phones, on your tablets, have you guys seen these things? Do you see sometimes something says privacy settings, or do you want to allow something to happen on your computer, yes or no? And Microsoft says, this program is trying to access your camera. Would you like it to access your camera? Maybe you don't, so say no. But maybe it's a program that you know, like Zoom, or a video conferencing program, and that program has to have access. So you say yes. Those are privacy settings and firewalls. Okay, and I want to talk about firewall. Has anybody heard the term firewall? Yeah. Has anybody heard the term firewall in relation to cars? Anybody ever heard that term? A firewall in a vehicle, I'll give you one guess what it was designed to do. Prevent fire from the engine from entering the passenger cabin. It was a firewall. It was a material that was in between the engine and the passenger cabin. Digital devices, especially computers, have things called firewalls too. Now, they're not physical. They're digital. What that means, this is a little image right here. If you can see this image, imagine this is your laptop or your computer. This is the firewall. The firewall blocks unwanted information or traffic from getting into your computer, but it allows traffic or information to go out of your computer. Okay, that's what a firewall does, if you ever hear that term. Firewalls are synonymous with internet security when you talk about those types of things, all right? The other thing that I always like to bring up is internet browsers. Who uses an internet browser? Everybody. If you've been online and you've gone to a website, you've used an internet browser. Internet browsers have built-in security settings as well to prevent information that is sensitive from getting into the hands of people who it shouldn't get into. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. If they really want it, there's ways to get it. But these settings should be left on. That's the point. If you see security settings on a device, leave them turned on, okay? All right, now we're going to talk about the dreaded passwords. You groan. Passwords are really important. They're a necessary evil. And I say that they're a necessary evil because people don't remember their passwords. And we're always being asked to change our passwords. And if passwords are supposed to be kept safe, and I write them all down, how does that keep them safe? So we've all got lots of questions about passwords. We're going to get to those, but I want to talk about the strength or weakness of the passwords that you're using. Okay? When you think about passwords, I want you to remember long and strong. Long and strong. We're going to dive into what exactly that means. We're going to start up here with the weak passwords, the red box. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Not good. The word password. Not good. Don't ever use the word password as your password. It's a bad idea. Baseball. Now that's a little bit better. They use a capital B, which is important. We're going to talk about why we do that. It's still not good at all. All right. So now we're going to move on to the still weak passwords. They're highlighted in red. Who can tell me what some of these differences are?
Special characters.
Special characters. Bingo. What else?
Place for the regular letters without symbols.
Using symbols instead of the actual letters of the alphabet. See how the dollar signs are used as the S's in password? That's good. That's good. We're using number and letter combinations with a special character. That's good. We're getting better, but we're not even close. Now we're going to go to strong passwords, the green. All right. What's the main difference in the strong password section from any of the other ones?
It's length.
It's length. Good. What else do you see about the length? What does the password consist of?
Yes.
A phrase. It's a phrase. It's not just one word. Walk 2 miles today. Keep it locked down. Learn from anyone. These are phrases. That's way better than individual words, okay? And I suppose I should stop here for a second and maybe provide some context. I think a lot of people have this image in their heads of a hacker. You've all heard the term a hacker, you know, somebody with nefarious intentions who's trying to get into your computer and get your information. They have this image in, you know, in the movies where there's this guy sitting at a keyboard and he's typing and he's trying to guess passwords. Oh, that one didn't work. He types another one. Oh, that one did. That's not what's happening. What's happening is that guy at the computer is hanging out with a sandwich in his hand, talking to his buddy while his computer program runs through hundreds of thousands of combinations of letters and numbers every second until it finds the password that gets into your computer. That's what's actually happening, okay? So the reason that I tell you this is because you can't prevent somebody from figuring out a password. If they want to figure out the password, there are programs that will figure it out. If you've got somebody who wants to get into your computer, I'm sorry, they're going to get into your computer. What we're talking about and trying to do here is make it more difficult for a computer program to guess your password. Okay, that's what we're doing here. All right. All right. Any questions so far? Yes.
Regarding passwords, what's your opinion about LastPass?
My opinion about LastPass. If you don't know what LastPass is, it's a third-party company that provides a service to aggregate passwords, right? That's what you're talking about. There's a few of them out there.
Keepers too.
Keeper is one as well. That's a popular one. You've seen the billboards maybe on the highways. They advertise. They're good. They're okay. These are good things to have, but they're not totally necessary. And I'll tell you why. Because the devices that you already have the ability to remember your passwords and keep them safe. Who has an iPhone? Okay, a lot of you guys. Ever been on a website and your iPhone asks you if you want to save the password and login information, and maybe you say no because you're afraid, you don't know what to do. If you say yes, it saves that information on your phone so that the next time you go to that website, it automatically pre-populates so you don't have to remember it. And that's okay, that's good. Web browsers do this as well. You ever been on the internet on a web browser on your computer or your tablet, and maybe you're using Google Chrome or Firefox, and something pops up that says, would you like to save this login information? Same thing. It's saving it to the web browser. And then it remembers that for the next time that you go in, and that's okay. Only if you secure the device. Does everybody have a password or visual facial recognition or thumbprint recognition on their phone to get into the phone?
Yeah.
If you don't, stop and do it right now. Create a password. If you don't, we can talk about it afterwards and I'll help you do it. That's the only way that you should be saving things to those devices, sensitive information, only if those devices are password protected. But you understand why I'm saying those other services aren't totally necessary. They're already built in if you know how to use them, okay? So my thought is, why do I need to pay for another service when the devices that I have already have it built in for free? That's my perspective. Any other questions so far? It's a good one. Yeah.
This just popped into my head. My husband and I share the same computer. Of course, we have our separate passwords. And we keep changing settings and different little things. So we're independent. So what if somebody's hacking us? Can they hack the whole computer or just us individually?
Yes, is the answer.
So
They could do either, or they could do the whole thing. If somebody's going to take the time to break into a machine, they're not just going to go into one person's profile. They're going to look at the whole machine.
So we should agree on our settings and our security.
Usually, settings and securities on a shared computer, desktop, or laptop are the same from an operating system standpoint.
Or the administrator.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
There are different things that you could do as an individual user on a computer to change those settings, but generally speaking, they are for anybody using that machine. They're set at the admin level usually. All right, so we're going to go to the stronger password. Notice it doesn't say strongest passwords because I don't know if that exists. I would even argue that the stronger passwords aren't strong enough. We'll get to that in a second. But why are these stronger passwords than the weak passwords based on what we've talked about? What are you seeing? What's being used?
They're random.
They're random. What else? We've talked about a few different components of
They're
passwords.
uppercase, lowercase,
There you go.
there's numbers, there's symbols.
Got it. Uppercase, lowercase, numbers, special characters. Keep it locked down has now changed with 3s for the E's, an exclamation mark for the I, capital. This one is these are good, right? Learn from anyone. The @ symbol as the A, right? So we've got all of the different things that we talked about employed, phrases as well, okay? Here's why I don't even think these are the strongest passwords. Because my passwords are gibberish. J, L, exclamation mark, capital K, dash, number sign, period, N, K, O, 4, 9, period. You get the point? Those are even more secure. Why are those more secure? Because it's very difficult for a computer program to find those combinations. All right? So again, we're making it hard, okay? And here's what I tell people, and this is not to scare you, but if the United States government can get hacked, we have no hope. And the United States government gets hacked. If the FBI gets hacked, what are we supposed to do? If the biggest banks in the world can't keep their customers' information secure digitally, you know, these people are throwing hundreds, tens of millions of dollars at internet security, okay? The point is, let's just make it more difficult, okay? Make sense? All right, good. Any other questions about passwords before we move on? Because we're gonna shift into the scam component now. Yeah.
That's what, even with stronger passwords, the issue becomes, how do you keep track of them outside of your computer?
So I'm gonna go back to what I was talking about before, which was sort of answering your question. These systems that are already built in, has anybody ever heard of, I'm gonna use iPhone as an example, iOS operating system that Apple has created. You have iPhones, right? If you have other Apple products, an iPad, a MacBook Pro, an Apple computer, they all talk to each other. And once you save that password on your phone, it's also now on your tablet. And it's also now on your laptop, okay? That's how. And this is how we start to get away from writing all of our passwords down, which is not the greatest idea.
How can you remember?
You don't. That's the point. You don't need to remember them. You let the device remember them. But you have to make sure that you've secured the device, so the password, so that people just can't get into the device and find out your passwords.
Well, I think that's the biggest problem.
Mhm.
All you need is one password. You need the password to get into the computer. Once you're in there, I can find everybody's password.
Yep.
If I can do it.
Yeah. She's right. You're right. You're absolutely right. There's one password to rule them all,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
If I find out, you know, and that's why you don't share that one password with anybody, but you only have to remember that one.
Yeah.
The one that gets into your phone or the one that gets into the computer. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
The thing that you need to do is you need to make sure all the devices are talking to each other. And there's ways to do that, but that's how we get away from having to remember all these passwords or having to write them all down.
Question.
Yeah.
So we're not just talking about laptops or your email. We're talking about Amazon. Like let's say you want to go into Netflix and then you have all this entertainment. It has always ID and password. So it's to track down all the passwords into one system. And then when you said about they need to communicate with one another, how can you realistically how it is possible? Computer login in the Amazon, Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, whatever entertainment with your laptop. And then we're talking about other things like your banking information. So you need to go in and check, and then if it's money come in and out, I mean, there are a lot of the security issues.
So let me give you an example. On my phone, I go to Chase, my banking site. I type in my username and my password, and then the phone asks me, do you want to remember this information? Right? So I press yes. Now it's stored on my phone. Now tomorrow, I go to Chase on my computer. I go to the website. And I go to the same website, and I click on the field where it wants me to enter my login and password. And it knows my login and password on my computer, because it's been talking to my phone. So that's how you can remember, that's how it can be used across different devices. Does that answer your question?
I was talking about the other devices.
Which devices? What
Let's
type?
say, so, my husband and I, we have all this accounts in Amazon. So we have one device, Apple TV, or the Amazon Fire, Fire, right? And then within that, you also need to log in this Netflix and then Amazon and then Hulu and then all these.
So you're talking about maybe streaming services or smart TVs or things
but
like
under
that.
all the password.
Yep. So if I have an Apple TV, it knows all the passwords too, because it's talking to my phone and it's talking to my computer. So that is one way there's many ways to do this, but that's just one way. So it can be done if you use all Apple products.
Okay.
And that's why I always use that as an example, because it's the easiest example.
What if,
Teams.
what if it is not Apple? Like, let's say we have, different computers like, yeah.
So if you, yeah, and so on my phone, because it saves all those passwords, because I've logged into Netflix on my phone, right? There's a place on my phone that keeps all of those passwords. So I don't have to write them down. So if I ever really need it, it's already in my pocket. And I just go to the passwords on my phone, look at passwords, find Netflix, and then, oh, there's my login information. And then I type it in. So as long as you're using it on your phone or you have it on your phone, then you don't have to write it down because it's always there. We always have our phones with us. That's what I generally tell people. Yeah.
I still like to have a backup of a little phone book,
Mhm.
little teeny tiny one I call my password book.
Yep.
And if everything else fails, I just refer back to that. I keep that updated, I keep it alphabetically.
Yep.
Because every once in a while, somebody will come in and say, what's your password for this? And your mind goes blank. So I have this little tiny hidden book.
Yep.
And it's in black and white.
And unfortunately, I don't recommend that.
I know.
It's a very insecure way of doing it. If somebody finds that book,
The famous thing is people keep the book right by the computer.
or yeah, so there's I don't recommend that. And that's why I talk about using the phone. That's why I talk about saving your passwords to your phone if you use a smartphone, because that is a more secure way.
Well, you could do that too, but I still think just jotting it down, keeping it up to date, for peace of mind, it's always there.
Yeah, I understand.
But I don't keep it next to the computer either.
Good, good. All right, I'm gonna switch over to scams right now, okay? All right, here we go. Types of scams. I'm going to talk about a few right now. You can look at this. I'm not going to read through the slide, but there are a few different popular scams right now that are going on. One actually happened to me not too long ago. It was the IRS scam. Has anybody been called by the IRS lately? Well, good, because the IRS will never call you, first of all. If anybody calls you and says that they're with the IRS, just hang up the phone, okay? If the IRS needs to get a hold of you, they will come knocking on your door if they have to, okay? But they will not call you, all right? However, I got a call one time from somebody with the IRS, and they said, "Hi, Mr. LaPalio, this is John with the Internal Revenue Service Department. The police are on their way to your house right now because you have $7,000 in overdue taxes. Mr. LaPalio, it's okay. Don't worry. Everything's going to be fine. If you make a small $500 goodwill payment with me today, I will call the police. I will have them turn around. I will let them know that you've satisfied the beginning of your overdue taxes, and then we can set up the tax payments on an ongoing." Mr. LaPalio, it's okay. Just give me your bank account information right now. We'll make a small withdrawal, and then we'll set up the payments for the future. You laugh, but people get this phone call and they're terrified. I mean, I'm not shaming you for laughing, right? Because we're sitting here in a room talking about this. But you get that phone call at 8 o'clock at night, maybe, where you're going to bed, you're a little tired, it's been a long day. Oh my gosh, what? Okay, so another one, the client of mine actually just luckily didn't fall victim to. God bless the person at the bank, I'll tell you this. I had a client who got an email. We're going to talk about emails and text messages, but got an email that told him that a service that he had used in the past couldn't auto-renew the subscription. And so he needed to call the phone number so that they could figure out what was going on and why the account that he was using wasn't auto-renewing the system. And so he called the phone number. It looked like a legitimate communication from this company. He called the phone number. When he called the phone number, the other person on the other line knew who he was, got some information from him, and actually had him navigate to a website where he could be shown something on his screen. The person on the other end of the phone was somehow showing him something on his screen. And he said, we've tried to debit your account for the $300 annual subscription and it's not going through. Okay, he said, see, we're gonna try it now. And he typed in, he saw my client saw 300 on the screen, and then all of a sudden it turned to 30,000. And the guy on the other end of the line said, oh my gosh, I just credited your bank account $30,000. I'm gonna lose my job. We need to get this money back. Sir, please help me. I have a family to feed. I have children. I'm gonna lose my job. I can't believe I made this mistake. Sir, I need you to go to the bank and I'll help you do this. I need you to go to the bank. My client went to the bank on the phone with this person as he was walking him through what to tell the bank tellers to withdraw $30,000 in a cashier's check and then have him Western Union it somewhere. And luckily, the bank teller said, sir, who are you talking to? He said, well, a company, they're trying to get me to, he's trying to explain it. He doesn't even really know what's going on. And the bank teller said, sir, this is a scam. And he said, well, they're saying that this is a scam. And he said, tell them it's for home improvement projects if they won't give it to you. Hang up the phone, okay? So these are very sophisticated ploys to get you to do things that you shouldn't do. Yeah.
How do those scammers know, like if we're at a certain bank or have certain accounts? How do they get that info about us?
Who knows? I think Chase got hacked at least a couple of times in the past 3 years. You know, I mean, this information is out there on a portion of the web called the dark web, which I don't know if you've ever heard of before. It's a whole different conversation, but just for very simplistic imagery, if this triangle represents the whole internet, just the tip of that triangle represents the internet that you and I regularly visit. Everything below that triangle exists, and it's called the dark web. And it is much bigger than the internet that you and I regularly use, okay? And there's lots of bad information out there.
We have one going on now too, where my husband's got many ones. You have inherited $1 million.
That's another good one.
Please come to us and, get this money.
What's your name?
Linda.
Linda, you receive an email. Dear madam, you have been bequeathed $400 million from your brothers, uncles, sisters, nephews, long lost relative from Botswana. And I am the executor of that estate. I'm with the law firm Marcus in Gibraltar. If you pay us a small processing fee of $400, we will be able to release those funds to you. Wow, $400 processing fee for 400 million? That's not bad. Okay. That money's gone, right? So yes, that's another big one. So these are some of the scams. Personal emergency. People will call and say, Grandma, this is Mark. And you have a grandson named Mark. And they know that because they've researched your Facebook account and they saw you posting pictures of Mark with his name. Say, Grandma, this is Mark. I'm in jail. Please don't tell mom and dad. I need $3,000 to make bail. Please, they're holding me here. But if you wire $3,000 to this account, it's at the police station. If you wire it directly to the police station, they'll release me. They're using fear. They're using immediacy. They're even using your relatives' names. All
They
right.
did it with a friend of mine that I had seen 2 days before. They're stuck in Europe. Can you wire some money so they can come back from Europe? And I go, that's definitely bogus. Because I just saw her 2 days ago.
You got it.
She couldn't be in Europe.
I got a scam right here.
Yeah. What is it?
It says, hi, how are you doing today? Not my name. I get these all the time.
Yep.
You know, normally I just delete it. I just don't.
We're gonna talk about that next, what to do when you start to get those things. But I want you to start to understand the different types of scams that are out there because that will make you aware. And if you are aware, you can be prepared. And if you can be prepared, you can be defensive. See how I tie it all back? Remember, I said that was the foundation, right? So that's the foundation, all right? You've received money, you've won money, you owe money, your computer is infected, right? These are all different types. And then I've got some statistics up here about the dollar amounts that people will lose, give away. And that money is gone, just gone, all right? Okay, so we're gonna move on to scams and how to spot them. I've got a couple of different images up here that I wanna go over, all right? The first one up here is a text message. Who uses text messaging? Okay, who gets scams or spam in text messages? Yeah, if you haven't, you will eventually, okay? I get them all the time. Don't ever click on a hyperlink or an internet link in a text message from a sender you do not know. Don't ever do it. That link will take you somewhere where you don't want to be on the internet, okay? Just delete it, all right? But here's a couple different ways that you can spot these types of things. All right, Seaport, I don't know if you guys can read this. It says Seaport alert. First of all, what does that mean, Seaport alert? I don't know what that means. It's not even a term that I've ever even heard of before, right? So I'm thinking, okay, what is this? Did you just try to charge $290.60 at Dig It Liver? What? No, who? First of all, who's that? I've never done business with a company called Dig It Liver before. And no, I didn't just charge $260. And you know what? If I'm not sure if I did or not, I just need to go and check my accounts. You know, if I'm wondering, all right? Because these things will happen and you'll say, oh, maybe I did. Okay, I click on the link. What is this about? Maybe I did do that, right? If you're wondering, just delete it. If somebody really needs to get money from you, they'll come after you. They'll send you to collections and then you'll know. Because if the collections companies come after you, you're gonna know, all right? So don't click on any links, just delete the text messages. If you get a text message from somebody who you know, a name that you know, and it seems a little strange, call that person. Say, did you just send me this text message? And they'll say, yeah, I did, you owe me 30 bucks. Don't you remember from poker the other night? Or whatever, right? Or they'll say, no, I didn't just send that to you, right? Maybe somebody got a hold of their phone number and they're sending fake texts through somebody else's phone number, okay? All right, so that's text message. Just delete them, please. The next one is an email. Now, we all get email spam, and remember I said not all spam are scams, but all scams are spam. If you are receiving unsolicited email from somebody who you don't know, the safest thing to do is just delete it, okay? Don't ever click on any links. If there's a link or an attachment, don't ever open any attachments or you are going to be in all sorts of pain. And I'm not talking physical pain. It's just bad. Don't open any attachments. Don't click on any links. But here's a couple ways to spot these scams, okay? First of all, always look at who it's from. You can always look at the sender's email address. If it is someone who you don't know, delete it. If you think it's legitimate, but the email address, who's globalpay.com? I have no idea who globalpay.com is. I've never done business with them before. And you know what? I was sort of wondering. So I went on Google and I did a Google search for who is globalpay.com. And guess what popped up? Scam, 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 right? All these things. People already know that globalpay.com is a scam. So if you're ever wondering, you can always do some research online, all right? So these are things that you can do if you're not sure. But if you have a sense that something's not quite right, trust that feeling, okay? The next thing here is says, dear customer.
Small c.
Small c, first of all, which we'll talk about in a second. But anybody who I do business with legitimately knows my name. They're not gonna say dear customer. They're gonna say dear Mr. LaPalio or dear Tony. Right? Just like it said, hi friend, or whatever yours just said, right? So that's usually a dead giveaway. The lowercase c, now this isn't too bad in terms of punctuation and grammar, but in many of these scams, they are written by people whose first language is not English. So if something looks like it's written with improper grammar, improper spelling, or it looks like their first language wasn't English, dead giveaway. And that has nothing to do with people whose first language are English. All it means is that a lot of these scams are coming from people whose first language isn't English. And so it's a way to stop these types of things, okay? Here it is, the dreaded attachment. Don't open these, okay? Because as sure as anything, as soon as you click on that link or open that attachment, your computer is infected with something bad. Okay, and then there's all sorts of other things that you have to worry about. All right, and if that does ever happen, which we're going to get to in a second, you disconnect the computer from the internet immediately. You turn off the Wi-Fi, wireless, or if it's plugged in with a cable, Ethernet cable, disconnect it from the internet immediately. It's the first thing you do. Okay. All right, any questions about the scams here? Is this helpful? Did this teach you a few things you didn't know already? I hope you feel a little bit more empowered.
What about if you're on the phone and that happens and you click on an attachment, like if you're on your cell phone? I mean, would there be any way you could?
It's less risk. Cell phones are less susceptible to malware and viruses, especially if you have an iPhone. But just don't do it. Just delete it.
Okay.
Just if you do click on those links, it's less of a concern. You can shut off the internet and you can disconnect from cellular as well, which is the first thing that you should do. That means nobody can communicate with the phone unless there's other ways, but generally nobody can communicate with that device if it's disconnected from the internet and cellular.
Then I get phone calls on my cell phone and it says, my provider is T-Mobile, and it says scam likely or scam. And then I got a call the other day and it said number verified, but I didn't recognize the number. So I just didn't answer it, but
Yep.
what does that stuff mean? Like
So
verified like?
yeah, and it's a good thing, right? This is a good thing. Telecom companies are providing some free and some paid services through cell phone providers to try and eliminate these scams from getting to you. And spam, some spam, scam, whatever in this case, right? So it identifies it. This is likely a scam or this is likely spam, right? So somehow they're identifying that. If it says verified, that must mean that it must be a phone number from a legitimate business somewhere, and most likely that is just spam.
Oh.
Okay. Unless you're waiting for a call from the doctor's office and you don't have that doctor's office number programmed into your phone. You know what I mean? So generally you don't have to answer them. Here's the thing about phone calls. If somebody really wants to get a hold of you, they're going to leave a message.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're ever getting a call and you don't recognize the phone number, you don't need to answer it. Let it go to voicemail and then listen to the voicemail and then decide whether you should call that person back or not. 9 times out of 10, somebody who's trying to scam you is not going to leave a message. They're just going to hang up and move on to the next person. Okay. Good questions, guys. Yeah.
Some years ago, I was working on a laptop and all of a sudden the screen went bright red, like that thing on the wall over there. The whole thing just red, no message. And I got so scared, I just shut it down. What, is that something like somebody takes over your screen or something?
Probably, it might be.
Because it never happened since, and I never had any repercussions from it.
Usually red screens on computers don't happen. Usually blue screens mean that the system is having a malfunction, like a legitimate malfunction, and the blue screen of death. If your computer turns blue, it usually means something is failing on the computer. Red screens usually don't happen unless
it's just bright red, no words,
Yeah.
no alert, no nothing. And I just
hard to
shut the whole
say.
thing down. I got scared and
Yeah, hard to say. You did the right thing, just shut it down. You might want to install some antivirus software on it and scan the computer. That would probably be a good idea.
Can I build on to that question?
Mhm.
So that happened in our main desktop computers. Something happened when my husband's desktop was malware, the virus got in. So it just didn't function as it's supposed to. So he contacted Microsoft And then he brought actually the desktop and then the tower into the Geek Squad, which is part of the Best Buy. And I think they do have some kind of a deals in the yearly or just whenever you have a tech support or tech issues happening, and they run some viruses and then they can advise you what to take next steps.
And my company will do the same thing. We'll come and we'll check your computer and run some software and check it.
What kind of software do you use?
Well, usually what we recommend is somebody purchase an antivirus software. Norton, Kaspersky, McAfee, those are 3 big names.
Yeah.
They're all legitimate, they're all good.
Right.
There's some free ones that are out there, but they're not as good. The virus databases are not as actively maintained.
You can watch a paper. I mean, I would say Norton, so you do have a Norton account and then you have a year membership or sometimes so you can actually protect your multiple devices, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Including your phone.
Exactly, yeah. So I do recommend those. Usually the internet safety settings on the devices are enough, but if you are ever worried that something has happened, I'll come, we'll work with it. I'll say, look, we need to put something on your computer here and download it and check it. All right. We are going to move on to the end. If unfortunately you do get involved in a scam, and everyone listen to me for a second, okay? Because this is really, really important. You must tell someone, okay? If you've gotten involved. Many of the statistics that are out there are only a fraction or a portion of the actual things that are happening because many go unreported because people are scared or embarrassed or ashamed that they got involved or they fell for something like this, okay? So please, tell a friend, tell someone you trust, call the police. At the very least, they have to file a police report. Hopefully they'll give you some other services or direct you in the right area. But at the very least, they must file a police report. And then you can use that police report if anything else happens and you have to recover money or have to give it to the bank or anything like that, okay? So very, very important. The other thing that you can do, and I recommend, is contact the government. Federal Trade Commission has an entire agency devoted to fighting these types of things, okay? It's reportfraud.ftc.gov, okay? The benefit of doing this is that then they might be able to help somebody else to avoid what may have already happened to you, okay? So it's sort of goodwill passing it forward. But they also spend millions of dollars going after these types of people. So they need to know what's going on out there. And they get this reporting from other police agencies and state agencies, but you can do it as well. And it's not a bad thing. But if you do nothing else, you have to contact the police. And then tell somebody who you love and trust, okay? No matter how embarrassed you are, no matter how ashamed you feel, you gotta tell somebody, okay? And that's it. That's the presentation. So thank you so much for coming. I hope that this has been enlightening. I hope that you feel more aware and more prepared so that you can be defensive when you're online. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.